Life is weirdly a lot harder than we've been told. And midlife? That's a whole other can of worms that I was completely unprepared for. What about you? But here's the good news. There are so many new skills and mindsets that we can learn to make even the toughest days a little bit better. You just haven't learned them. Welcome to Thrive with Kira, a smart and scary podcast for women in midlife that teaches the skills to get more joy and love in your life. Join me weekly as I teach science-based, smarty-farty topics and break them down into bite-sized lessons that you can apply to your life, all while sharing my own shit show life stories that you can learn from. I'll be talking regularly about getting more joy on a daily basis, thriving in midlife, yes, you can, figuring out menopause, healthy dating and relationships, building self-worth, body positivity and neutrality, growth mindset, adult friendships, and also just easy mindfulness. So we can stop just surviving and start learning how to thrive. Welcome to Thrive. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Thrive with Kira. I'm Kira. Amazing how that works. How's everybody doing? Happy Tuesday. I have been under the weather. I have had 2 flu bugs in the last 4 to 6 weeks, hoping they're gone. I guess this living comes with some germs, but that's okay. But will that illness, the Joy Journey, had to take a break because I could barely get out of bed without feeling awful, let alone record videos, have any kind of coherent thoughts for a few days. So we're back. We're here. We're somewhat excited, and I'm really excited because actually today in the Sabin Bladel house, it's Danny's birthday. He turns 46 today, and he's working, so that's grown-up life. But just wanted to give him a shout out because I love this crazy guy, and he's so incredible. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you actually heard the beginning of our relationship and our dating and moving in together and sobriety and so many different things. So I feel like in some level, Danny is the silent co-host of this because so much of my wisdom, particularly with relationships and creating healthy relationships and just creating a healthier life, comes because of this incredible man, this incredible person who decided to go all in with me, which, by the way, is a crazy idea for him to do, but he did. And we're almost 10 years in, guys. It's nuts. I never thought I would be in a long-term relationship or married, and here we are. Really fucking happy, except for the rest of the shit in my life. But he and I are always good, which is, man, that's a fucking gift. But it's a gift that we work on and we make sure that we stay good. So I just want to give a shout out to him because he's the best. He's the absolute best. So I'm back today with a podcast. I'm going to tie it into the Joy Journey, but it's not the podcast that I originally was going to do. I'm pulling this out of my ass today. I'm not going to lie. But occasionally I am sparked by something I've read that just gets me thinking and processing, looking at my own experience. And I want to come over here and talk about it. And I think it really ties into the last podcast of mindset. But I was on Instagram, which happens because I post there regularly. And I came across a gentleman named Adam Grant. I followed him for a while. He is an organizational psychologist at Wharton School. And his name is Adam Grant. If you don't follow him, I think his stuff is pretty interesting. But I really loved what he posted this morning. And as I started thinking about it, I realized that this has been something that I have struggled with my whole entire life, but yet have worked on overcoming. This is something that I see so many people struggling with and not overcoming. And so I just want to break it down today and talk about overthinking. That's right. Who here who's listening is an overthinker? And I'm going to say that is probably most of us. There might be places in life where we overthink and other places that we don't, but Most people, unless they've had a shit ton of therapy, a shit ton of coaching, and have actively worked on their limiting beliefs, their thinking traps, probably coping skills, they're probably struggling and dealing with this too. Yet I don't see us talking about it as much as we do. And surprisingly, of the 380 some episodes on this podcast, for all the times that I've talked about mindset and everything else, I don't think I've talked that much about overthinking. Yet it plagues all of us. So today I'm going to start off with a quote. I am going to then break down the 3 kinds of overthinking, and you may do all of them. God knows I do. And then we're going to talk about some strategy on what to do when this happens. Because overthinking is a curse. I don't think it's a gift. I think it's a curse. But it doesn't have to happen. We can retrain our brain, and that's exactly what we need to do. But I want to start by reading you this quote by Adam Grant that I saw this morning. I thought it was really great. And this is how it goes. The antidote to overthinking isn't thinking less, it's rethinking more. Overthinking is ruminating on old ideas without a new lens. It narrows your focus and wears you out. Rethinking is revisiting the same issue from a different perspective. It broadens and sharpens your view. And he actually wrote, if you haven't had a new thought in 10 minutes, it's probably time to take a break. Seek out someone with a different view or read something fresh. And that just got my brain overthinking this morning. No, I'm kidding. But I was like, yes, Adam. Yes, Adam Grant. I really love that. I really love what you're saying there. And let's expand on it. Let's do a podcast on it because overthinking can absolutely sabotage us and kick our asses. So I love that quote and those thoughts. And it led me to find this really good article. I'll put it in my show notes, but by a psychologist, Melody Wilding, about the 3 types of overthinking. And I thought that this was so interesting. I wanted to share it. And one of the things that she says right away is constantly churning thoughts can be exhausting. And if left unchecked, overthinking can contribute to anxiety and burnout. And I think that that's so true. I would say that so much of our burnout isn't our physical body burnout. It's the exhaustion of overthinking, sometimes pretending to be something we're not so that other people can like us or we can feel more acceptable in society. I find that it's not actually life, but how we feel like we have to exist to fit into life. That's my kind of thoughts on it today. But I think that that's absolutely true. And I like when she goes on to say, and this article is actually for overthinking kind of in business or in your job, but it's still applicable. And she says, habitually overthinking creates a bottleneck. Decision making slows, opportunities are missed, and a culture of risk aversion can take hold. So you don't even want to try new things. You don't even want to try to meet new people. You don't even want to try to go out and try a new hobby or a new group or a new community or anything because we're overthinking all the things that could go wrong instead of all the things that could go right. All of this ties deeply into positive psychology. So let's talk about the 3 types of overthinking. Now, the first one I have talked about on this podcast a lot, and it's the word rumination. And that's described in this article. She says it's best described as a mental loop where you dwell on past events, particularly negative or distressing ones. Those who ruminate are often caught up in a whirlpool of regret, of guilt, of woulda, shoulda, coulda scenarios, and they review what went wrong, often blaming themselves. And the problem with rumination, because there's nothing wrong with you occasionally looking at a past situation or trying to learn from it or trying to assess how to do it better in the future. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when we get stuck there. And by the way, that can be what trauma looks like. When we go back to the same idea or the same moment again and again and again in our heads, and we just can't let it go. So, what are some signs to watch out for? You fixate on negative feedback. So, let's say a friend or a date or a partner or your boss gave you some not so positive feedback and you're just stuck there. You're just thinking about it and you keep coming back to it and you can't let it go and you cannot see it in the scheme of all of the things in your life, all of the good things that are happening, all of the positive things that are said. You are stuck on that negativity. So that is very normal. Number two, you are often bring up past failures, setbacks, slip ups in conversations with others. It kind of slips out. Recently discovered, by the way, I'm a big GBBO fan, which is Great British Bake Off, for any other GBBO fans out there. And on Roku, I don't know if you guys knew this, but there is, wait, what is that called? But it's a Great British Bake Off, the Great American Bake Off. Okay, Kira, let's get there. Fun. Um, it's been really interesting finding this and watching it and watching one of the people who is clearly struggling not only with confidence but self-worth. And I think we automatically kind of say confidence because when somebody, is constantly critiquing themselves or constantly having a hard time accepting those compliments, that kind of thing, we think that's a confidence issue. But it goes a little deeper than that. It goes deeper. It's one thing to not have confidence in a new skill. But if you're on the Great American Bake Off, you've got some skills to be there, first of all, right? So you have been chosen out of, my guess, lots of fucking people applying for this. Probably thousands in the States because probably thousands. So that's number one. That's not confidence in your skills. So when she's making comments about herself and her mistakes, I can hear the low self-worth because it's about her own thinking. She made a mistake or thought she was going to make a mistake. And she's like, I just don't want this to haunt me for the rest of my life. Now, I want you to think about that statement for a second. She's not saying that all the people who watch the Great American Bake Off, if she makes a mistake, they will publicly shame her. We will put her in the stocks and throw tomatoes at her or things like that. That's not what she's saying here. What she's saying is, if I make a mistake here, I am going to beat myself up in my head again and again and again. The person that she is most scared of is herself, is the inner critic, is that mean girl who lives inside her head. Now, I'm making an assumption, but I don't think I'm making an off assumption because I've seen this in myself. I have seen this in so many of my clients throughout the years. I see this in everyday conversations with people everywhere. I can tell within a moment or two who's really hard on themselves in their head. So imagine stopping what we're doing, not going after things anymore, ruminating, letting things just play on a record over and over and over again. That is rumination. The final sign to watch out for rumination is you're overly cautious. You're always double or triple checking your work because you want to avoid making mistakes. Why do you want to avoid making mistakes? Because when you make a mistake, who's there commenting? Who's there checking your work? It's probably not your boss. It's probably not your partner. It's probably you. It's probably that little grumpy voice inside your head. How fucked up, let's be honest, fucked up is it that we are our own worst enemies? Now, you probably didn't become your own worst enemy by yourself. These are a lot of times we find out our inner critic is based on the voice of somebody we were raised by, maybe a parent or a grandparent, coach, a teacher. But if we're adults and those voices have gone internally and they are deciding whether or not we go after what we want in life, if it's deciding whether or not we have joy or happiness or not, or a relationship or a job that we want, or a new skill or hobby, that's a problem. But yet, at least three-fourths of the population shares that they are overthinkers. So that's number one. The number two way of overthinking, future tripping. So instead of being trapped in the past, those who are future tripping are concerned about what lies ahead. While some degree of anticipation is beneficial, future tripping can escalate to the point where it holds you back. The uncertainty of what might happen, the potential for failure, and the fear of the unknown can make it a challenging form of overthinking. So, signs to watch out for. You spend excessive energy planning for every possible scenario to feel prepared for any eventuality. Next, you find it hard to celebrate your successes because you're always thinking about what's next. Or another way that I think about this is when somebody's like, okay, life's going too well right now, so I better brace myself because something terrible is going to happen. That's future tripping. You don't fucking know that. You don't know that at all. Next, you often feel restless or agitated, driven by thousands of outstanding to do items. That's future tripping. Who feels that? Who gets stuck on what's possibly going to happen in the future? We all want to be mind readers. We all want to be future mind readers to the people in our lives, and just we want to know what's going to happen so that we can stay safe or feel safe. I'm going to break some hearts right now when I tell you that's not real. That's not real. You can spend your whole life fucking preparing, doing all the right things, doing everything correctly, overdoing things 2, 3, 4 times so you get it right, thinking that that's going to somehow save you from bad relationships or friendships or a bad job or illness or things like that. And you can do everything seemingly right, and a relationship may not work out because of the other person. You can show up and do a great job at your job and finally feel like you found it, and the startup goes under, and all of a sudden you're unemployed. Shit happens all day, every day. I think back to, just how things, this is the way my little ADHD brain works, but like moments in different TV shows or movies that stick out. And there's one from a really, really early Grey's Anatomy episode. I watched it in the beginning like everybody else. I fell off somewhere a long time ago. But shout out to my fellow coach friend Kate Anthony, who was in the first couple seasons of this as a nurse. But I remember this episode where this one woman, we would describe her in our society as kind of like a type A perfectionist, right? Dressed to the nines, what we would want to think is like in control of her life, adulting at 100%, whatever you want to say. And at one point, they walk into her room and she is downing a whole cake. She's got like a whole fucking cake in front of her and she is just eating it. And their doctors are like, what's going on? And she's like, I did everything right my whole entire life and I still have cancer. I have watched everything I put in my mouth. I worked out every day. I did this, I did that. And she's like, and I am still here. And I don't remember if it was terminal or not. It was a long time ago. But that stuck out to me that we can do things, seemingly quote unquote right. And life can still kick us in the ass because it's life. And here's the much better option. Instead of OCD trying to control your whole entire existence and relationships and friendships and everything else so that you never feel uncomfortable or unsafe. All right, number 3 type of overthinking is overanalyzing. I do this a lot. I think for me, and I know that a lot of you who listen to this podcast identify as ADHD or neurodivergent, probably because you can keep up with my thinking. Just that. And overanalyzing is definitely one of the ways that I overthink. So, overanalyzing, it says rumination and future tripping are bound by time, one looking back, the other looking forward. Overanalyzing is centered on depth. It involves diving incredibly deep into a topic, thought, or situation, often to the point of excess. While we can sometimes lead to profound insights, more often than not, it results in getting bogged down in the details and may not be particularly relevant. I find that I do this. I let myself get overwhelmed and then I shut down and don't take action. I'll want to do things so right that I overanalyze, I over research, I over try to educate or inform myself. And what happens is I become then overwhelmed and I do fucking nothing. And that's the sabotage with the overthinking and overanalyzing. And I know that I'm not alone. So, signs to watch out for: you procrastinate or delay taking action to research further. You frequently seek out others' approval or confirmation because you lack confidence in your own analysis. And you have difficulty distinguishing between high priority and low priority tasks, leading to a backlog of decisions. Who feels that? How do we solve that? If you just listened to those and you said, yes, I do that one, or I do both of the, yep, I do all three of those, whatever it is, most of us overthink on some level in our lives. What do you do? Do you just keep overthinking? Do you keep letting yourself think about things, thinking that you can somehow protect yourself from every situation if you just think about all the possible bad things that could ever happen to you? Talk about a thief of joy. Talk about ruining our moments and our moments of joy, because how are we noticing our moments of joy, even our happiness, even moments in our relationship or with our animals or with our kids or nieces and nephews or whoever is lucky enough to get to be a part of our lives? When we are ruminating, we are giving so much energy and time and power to negative thoughts. And as I mentioned on the last podcast, that's how we become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I can promise you there is something crazy ass that can happen to you that you have not even thought about yet. I can also promise you that there's some high ass number of percentage of things that don't ever come true no matter how much you worry about them. But worry, overthinking, rumination, all of it puts you back in your head and out of the moment. This podcast was supposed to be about mindfulness, but fuck that noise, because I believe in mindfulness. But the minute I say mindfulness, people shut down, are like, fuck that, I don't want to meditate. That's not the point here. The point is that most of us are overthinking and under feeling. When we are ruminating, it's a way to not stop and let us feel our feelings in our body. We are trying to think ourselves out of the pain, think ourselves away from potential problems. But then we just spend all of our time focused on what's wrong instead of what's right. Overthinking is the opposite of mindfulness, which is just being fucking present in your life, being aware of what's happening around you, being in the moment with the people that you are with, living in your life and in your body more than just in your head. Overthinking creates the scenarios that we don't want. And it makes no difference how much you prepare yourself for the pain. You're still going to feel the pain. Worrying, overthinking just makes us feel the pain multiple times. How do we change this? We really can't do it very easily ourselves, like most major changes in life, or we would already be doing it. This is the exact kind of work I do with clients. This is exactly what I'm going to do in Thrive. I'm also taking on some one-on-one clients right now through the new year if you want to work on self-worth. If you know that your perspective and mindset is struggling, let's work together. I got you guys. All right, that's it for today. If you're ready to change your life, change it with me. Let's do this. Let's fucking do this. I'm so excited. There is now a 10-part payment plan. Figure it out. Come talk to me. If you liked this, please subscribe. I don't always put things out weekly. Sometimes I put things out 3 times a week. Sometimes I'll have a week and a half to 2 weeks in between. So subscribe so you know exactly when things go live. Finally, if you really love it, please leave a review. Whether it's just some stars on Apple or Spotify, or really writing down what you are learning and loving about this podcast. I read every single one. They fucking make my day. You are the wind beneath my wings. And it helps get it out there. Because honestly, as much as I can say this, for as much feedback I get about this podcast, which is a lot, and most of it all very positive, except for the people who don't like my swearing and don't fucking care. Even if you never share this with another person, by you writing an anonymous review, that lets other people know this might be something that they want to check out. All right, guys. I'll see you soon. No more surviving. Let's thrive.